All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. More movement in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today Show host Susan Guthrie. And we're looking here at some of the video that we're getting into our newsroom, potentially another helicopter as the search stretches now into its second week. But a major breakthrough today, potentially, as the FBI releasing some new images of a potential abductor outside of the home. But first, I want to talk about this because the colleague for our Fox team, Jonathan Hunt, who has been on the ground, reports that SWAT, bomb squad, and command center vehicles just left the Pima County Sheriff's parking lot. Sources tell Fox that this is related to Guthrie's disappearance. So they're asking for the public's help following the release of this surveillance video for the first time. The public really getting a grasp of this. They had to recover it from that doorbell camera. For more on this, let's go out right now to Caroline Elliott on what we know and what we're learning from this new video.
The FBI now releasing surveillance photos for the first time 10 days into the search, where we can clearly see someone standing on the front porch of Nancy Guthrie's home. In that photo, you can make out someone that looks like they're standing underneath an arch. And in those photos, you can make out someone wearing a mask, wearing gloves, and it appears that they're even trying to tamper with that recording device that was on Nancy's front porch.
This is very powerful evidence, not only in furthering the investigation, but potentially at a trial.
The FBI will be analyzing this surveillance video closely, hoping to find any clues that could help solve this case. The White House also now reacting to these photos in a Tuesday White House briefing, saying that President Trump offers his full support for the Guthrie family.
And again, we're just praying for the safety of Nancy Guthrie and that she will return home soon. And the president directed me to please encourage all Americans with any information to call the FBI. And
Susan Guthrie also sharing a new statement on Instagram this afternoon, where she said she believes her mom is still alive, saying, "Bring her home now." In Tucson, Arizona, Caroline Elliott, Fox News.
All right, and this was the major breakthrough earlier on today. FBI Director Kash Patel sharing some of these images of an individual that has a ski mask on, gloves, a long shirt, a backpack, and also potentially holstering a weapon. So lots to get into, and what we're seeing in these new images here on Live Now from Fox of this is they also saw the individual be aware of this doorbell camera, take a plant of sorts, and also try to cover it up. And this in the early morning hours of that February 1st day. Let's be joined right now here on Live Now from Fox by body language expert Susan Constantine. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And there's a lot to get into, a lot that may stand out to you from your unique perspective. What do you see in that video?
Well, in that very first video where you showed him with his hand up near the camera, if you could back up from that, before that, there was probably more telling. So one of the things that I looked for is the surrounding environment, where there he is, the person of interest is standing in conjunction to the wall height, to the archway when this person comes walking in and exiting. So why is that important? Right here is a good picture. So you can see literally 3 layers of brick. So if you could measure down 3 layers of brick, and then from that point down to the ground will give you the overall height. Also, when this person is exiting and coming in, you can also use that as a measurement. I don't know how high that arch is, but that's what I look at. When I'm looking at a suspect and we're trying to determine who that is and profile them, I'm looking at all of the outside perimeter areas, whether it's trees or bushes or pylons or garbage cans or whatever it is, and then measuring from there. So right there is a really great picture of what we're looking at. So the other thing, go ahead.
Continue on if you have more thoughts.
Yeah, so now we're looking at him completely clothed, in the concealment. This is typical of any sort of person of interest that might be out to carry an act, or a person that might be in imminent danger. They always conceal themselves. We always see masks and we see the gloves, and everything is covered from head to toe. However, we can also see the proportional measurements of him. So we can see where the jacket comes down, how it's fitted, can tell us whether what their structure is like. This person obviously is very fit, a little bit shorter waisted, longer torsoed. That gives you some proportional measurements. And then as we get closer, we look at his eyes and his eye shape and any sort of other identifiable features that we should be looking at. Another thing I want to point out is that in my training in iAlert, which is how to identify persons of dangerous intent, it's not unusual that they would carry a backpack. The backpack now going in is already full. So we know that this is not a robbery, right? Because the person would have come in with less stuff in the backpack, and they generally come in with 2 or 3 people because they have tasks that they have to do. One's a lookout, one is coming to the front, might we be breaking the window. Another one is the one who enters. So they have their roles. That's what I'm trying to say. It's unusual to see a burglar coming in with a full backpack through the main front door by themselves. So I don't think that this was a burglary.
That is very interesting, just to note some of those fascinating details of this, because it's the first glimpse as they compiled this video. They finally got it from the doorbell camera. I want to ask you, because you mentioned just the familiar nature this individual has, and this is potentially 2 in the morning or so. We're not exactly sure of the time frame of, but this individual is somewhat walking up there almost casually in nature. Is that familiar for you in terms of body language? Does that come off in that way, that this individual potentially looks familiar with, looks accustomed to this kind of setting?
Yeah, they do. And so somebody that has already thought it out, you have to understand what's going on here. They've already planned it, right? They fantasized about it. They planned it. Now they're in execution. When they're in execution, there's almost this dead man person, right? They're mission oriented. So all of their high anxiety is brought down because they're focused on the mission. So we don't see any sort of rapid movements, right? We don't see any rapid eye blinking. I don't see any intensity in the eyes. This person is very calm. There's no signs of anxiety. So, and very familiar with that area. So if this person has never been there before, certainly has surveyed it. This person feels very comfortable walking. They knew where everything was. So there's no sense of, I don't see any sort of anxiety or, shifting movements to where they don't know where anything is. This person knows exactly where everything is.
And we asked one of the law enforcement experts that we bring on here about some of this, and it was also peculiar to them to use that plant to put it in front of that. Does that throw them off at all? Does that stand out to you in any way? The fact that they didn't have tape, they didn't have anything else, that they're using something they just found on the walk-in to cover the doorbell camera at all?
Well, I don't know whether they used that to cover it up or whether they used it to rub it on something. I'm not sure what they did, because it seemed to me that there was something that alarmed them in a sense, but not in a nervous sort of way, but noticed something and said, oh, I need to grab this and throw this over the top of it, right? So generally speaking, a real professional would have already planned that out just in case. But on the other hand, this person may have thought that the camera wasn't working, or the lines were cut or whatever. So we don't know. There's some pieces of this puzzle that we don't know. So we're only kind of speculating.
Yeah, of course. And I want to ask you, because obviously as a body language expert, I bet the FBI, law enforcement in Pima County are using all available resources, other body language experts, other people that key in on some sort of things. Do police departments utilize your expertise, or people like you and your expertise, to kind of help flesh out any leads or any evidence?
Yeah, in fact, I train them. So, not only do they seek me out, I train them. I teach them in a training program called iAlert. And iAlert is what are the behavioral indicators of a person to carry out imminent danger or threat. So there are specific, what we call points of interest. I can't tell you what they all are, because people that are taking my course have to sign an NDA, because it's, classified information only for those. I mean, we go through tough screening. They can't even take the class until we've done a background check on them. Why? Yeah. We don't want it in the wrong hands, and we don't want people to know what we're looking for. So when you're talking to this body language expert, it's a little different, because that's my training. So my training goes a lot deeper than just looking at behavioral analysis. It's how to identify those indicators of dangerous intent. And there are certain things that we look for in a cluster, and they're also done in an algorithm. So that's what I'm looking at here.
That is so very interesting and fascinating. I'm glad we got your unique perspective here on Live Now, as we also know that law enforcement are not obligated to share all of their information, so they might be keeping some info or other evidence, other leads closer to the vest than that they are allowing the public to see. All right, Susan, thank you so much. I appreciate your time here on Live Now.